an M for Murph and J, a D for Donna, and I think Laura is someone we've seen before. Welcome to all of you. I understand you may be at work, and that's why we see no faces, but it's good to have a new crowd. All right. And Bill has joined us. How do, Bill?
Hello.
All right. We are the NatickFOSS user group meeting monthly on Jitsi online, as those of you who are here have obviously figured out. We're here in Natick, Massachusetts, and have had meetings together with online only since the outbreak of COVID in 2000 and recent. And here we are 5 years later. We're still going strong in spite of that plague upon our lives. And we'll be virtual until we know for sure that it's safe to go out there again, meet somewhere that can have us do both virtual and live activities together. But for now, here we are, and I'm going to take a moment to welcome again our newer members or newer participants, as we say. Some people may be watching this on YouTube, thanks to Dennis putting it there for us. The link is in our website, NatickFOSS.org, and is found for each individual meeting on our archive page. There's a link at the top of our homepage that sends people to that, and I imagine some here have found that recently. I'm also going to take a moment to share my Firefox, so let me just get to that link. When I get to that, it will pop up for everybody as today's agenda, and I hope everybody can see that now.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Then we're in a good situation for making this meeting a good place to talk about FOSS, free open source software, not just free in terms of money, but liberty. Freedom, as in freedom to do what you want with the software, when you want to do it, and without the restrictions placed by corporations with proprietary desires. Okay, our agenda. I will point my mouse to the right place. And we begin today talking about FOSS news with, I think, Jerry Feldman having something ready for us about Fedora 41. Is that correct, Jerry?
Yes, it is.
All right. And I think I'll stop my sharing so that you can take the screen for us and give us your presentation.
Okay, everybody see my screen?
I do. Thank you.
Okay. Fedora 41 has just been released in beta. It won't be released until next month, officially. And that includes GNOME 47. And the new features are, as I mentioned, GNOME 47. They are removing Python 2. I had a little blurb on that. I don't know what happened to it. But Python 2 is going to be totally removed. You can still use it under PyPy. Proprietary NVIDIA driver installations available with secure boot. There's a new Fedora repo query tool, which is quite complicated as I understand it. KDE Plasma Mobile Spin and LXQT 2.0. Now, OpenSSL now distrusts one signatories by default. And essentially, that's what this says starting in Fedora 41. I think Bill probably will mention that in his talk on the Beatnik BLU meeting. And again, System D services the hardening features added default for default surfaces. And Wayland only GNOME. And GNOME 47 has a bunch: performance, faster, more accurate rendering, better performance. I've copied this from somewhere else. Better support for small screens, new dialog windows, although the ones I've seen don't look any different than the others. So which ones? Improved navigation and better search information. A modernized interface. Its interface changes every time it gets into release to some extent, and generally comes up in multiple desktops. Persistent remote sessions, improved graphics, tablet handling, improved graphics acceleration. Again, I haven't seen it. Better interop with X11 apps. Improved network connection and improved default applications. And again, under the hood, 47 handles more processes and jobs asynchronously, so slower blocking activity don't hinder others. That's an area that I worked in for years, asynchronous, and it does get complicated. GNOME initial setup, copy worker job runs. The first time a newly created job log using copies a set of standard files from the temporary GNOME initial setup. So again, it's a little bit different. I don't think you're going to notice it. And again, GNOME 47 supports touchpad gestures using 3 or more fingers, if anybody uses a touchpad here. And the terms tracker and tracker miners have been replaced by local search, tiny SparQL. These are the components that document indexing routines. And the change tries to avoid the bad associations that cling to terms such as tracker, make it cleaner what these services and libraries actually do. The GNOME initial setup, copy worker job runs the first time the newly created user logs in. And I had already mentioned that. I don't know why I copied that into a separate thing. Nope. Again, I made it brief. A couple of things that I noticed is every time there's a new release of Fedora, all of my icons on the top go away. These are these are GNOME add-ons. I have a list of favorites. I mirror my favorites to the top, and they go away, and I actually have to go in and re-enable them. that keeps them from getting stale. And but so far, I've noticed that it runs well. I haven't used it all that much, because usually I spend most of my computer time now on my phone.
Hmm.
So, but all in all, I think that the Fedora 41 is working fine. I think it was a little bit smoother coming up this time than Fedora 40, which I had a little bit of issue with. The only issue I've had with Fedora 41, which is right now beta, is on the initial boot. It initially didn't boot, but when I shut it down and turned it back on, it came right up. It'll log back in. Overall, it's good. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anybody have specific questions they want to put to Jerry's brief beginning?
No.
All right. We don't always have questions at the beginning. Sometimes they percolate along and come back. Everybody did a very good job, by the way. I didn't remind people that it is good habit to mute your microphones, because feedback is easy to happen if you're not using headphones that are plugged in. If you're using headphones that leave your computer's microphone on, we get loops of sound. And thank you all for doing that. I appreciate it. Okay, back to my sharing. Where is my, there it is, sharing, window, Mozilla Firefox. I talk to myself even though you can hear me. Okay. Social Web Foundation is launched. Now, this relates to people like me who use Mastodon, which is not really the social network. The social network is something that does not rely on corporations to provide connectivity in a little more than chat-like way. These are sites that do the job that Twitter has tried to do, X has tried to take over, but Mastodon is one of many of the social network software suites, and their launch of this foundation is to try to provide a central discussion place for those platforms which use the standard protocol known as ActivityPub. Social web, as it says here, is also called the Fediverse and is a network of independent social platforms that don't just do the micro blogging of Twitter and or others, but are able to do things that have video and podcasting, and as long as they share the protocol of ActivityPub for their transfer of information, they become part of this social web and can rely now on the foundation for a common discussion point. It's brand new, just this month. But if you're interested in expanding the social web, this is now a way to get more involved. And this was the this second link The third was a social web article discussed by a group of people who helped to begin the process. The Evan Podromo, I believe I've pronounced that right, is one of the co-authors of the ActivityPub protocol. And because he is so deeply embedded in the process, this is his image on the left of this group. It's very good to see that he's heavily involved in the launch of this new organization. I hope that things go well with not just Mastodon, but all the others who use ActivityPub as their non-proprietary protocol. I know a couple of others in this group who use it routinely. Not everybody does, but maybe it will become more popular as we go forward. Anybody have comments about the
From
Activity
me,
Pub?
a big
Dick,
big
go
thank
ahead.
you. I'll check it out later. Sounds just right.
Murphy had something to say.
Go ahead, Murph. Oh, just the comment. What was made in the texts, which we can track as well as we go through the meeting. My screen isn't showing them at the moment because of what I'm doing. All right, I've put the chat up. There's Murph at Hackers Town. There it is. That explains it very well. All right. Already part then of the network, because Hackerstown is one of those ActivityPub servers. We call them instances because we're very techie people, but really all it is just a community. In their Hackerstown case, very techie people, as I understand it. Okay, back to my Mozilla screen for the group's meeting. FOSS history. Ed brought a nice article to our attention about the Linux file structure and how it organized itself around the kernel and is laid out to help understand where things belong. Ed, do you have a particular thing to say about this, or shall I stumble through it myself?
Well, if you'd like to stumble through it, feel free. I just thought it was an interesting read. It explains, like bin, etc, opt, and the files that are found inside them.
I think I go
Almost
back
everybody
to old
uses.
Unix. I can talk about those too.
Correct. Yes. I'm hoping that just occurred on the screen on my screen is not going to be difficult to get rid of. Apparently, I'm having trouble with it.
I would like to make one mention
right in the center.
I would like to make one mention about the Linux file system and some recent changes, at least in some distros, where they have taken some of the directories that were broken out, and sometimes even they were separate partitions, and they've put them inside of USR. These were the binaries, Bine and SBine. And I found that interesting that they made that change.
Mm-hmm.
And I do question, what was this a practical matter or just a preference matter?
I don't know myself. I have a feeling that the more user setup is reflecting the current realities of most Linux users as opposed to the original Unix server
Yeah.
and client arrangements,
Yeah,
putting things
originally,
yeah, excuse me. Go ahead,
Yep.
Jerry.
originally with Unix, you had a very small root file system, and your /USR file system was always mounted, and the binaries, usually in /bin, were all compiled with their libraries, with their static libraries, where the binaries in /user bin were compiled with the .so, the shared libraries. Because when you're in single user mode, you couldn't get at the libraries and stuff like that. It's all historical, based on a disk size back in the 1970s. VAR is another one that came later. Etsy's been around for years. That's where all the system configuration stuff is. And SBIN was added really for system only binaries. And sometimes they can only be executed if you are root. So I've been around in the
Okay,
history of a
I
lot of
think-
that stuff.
Yeah, that helps
Mhm.
because I now understand a little bit more about what SBIN was and why the binaries with static libraries would
Yeah.
be someplace other than the ones with the shared libraries.
That's correct. They originally were in /bin, then moved to /sbin. What's now home used to be /user users,
Hmm.
and that /home is a more recent add-on.
And so now they've consolidated everything into USR.
Well, the users aren't on USR anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
But it was,
I mean the binaries.
for the most part, yeah. And at some point in Unix, I know that the binaries in /bin were linked to the binaries in /user in more recent years, because because now the way Unix boots up, it always boots up the libraries.
Yeah, so it had to do with what was always mounted in Unix versus what I would mount later.
That is correct. And in single user mode, you did not have access to anything in /USR.
Okay.
Okay, I've changed the screen back from the ZDNet view because I was getting so much network traffic that Jerry was breaking up in his explanations. I hope I didn't cause anybody confusion by that. When
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say one reason for ZDNet doing that is that they do have ads that want to show, and that takes up bandwidth.
Absolutely. But when we put our agenda together, sometimes we try to warn people about excuse me, my phone is yelling at me, but not with anything I want to talk to. So I think when we put our agenda together, we try to do a job of adding warnings for that sort of thing, but apparently I missed on doing the ZDNet, which is a pretty heavy website, meaning a lot of bits and pieces try to overlay on your view of it. Okay, so I'm headed back to my Firefox agenda here, and we see an article about switching to Arch Linux. If you are a user of many of the different, as we call them, flavors of Unix, whether it be Fedora or Ubuntu or Mint or any other in the vast spread of choices, a lot of people consider Arch Linux to be kind of under the hood. And this article is another one in the same vein as the Linux file structure, talking about a specific approach to building your own Linux-based operating system. If you are interested, this article that you will want to know about how to approach your own near from scratch system build, working up from the basics. I have not done so myself. Has anybody tried Arch and have comments about this? Didn't hear anybody speak up, and I don't know if I saw any hands raised.
Laura has a comment.
Hmm?
Laura
Oh,
has a
good.
comment in the chat.
Go ahead. Uh-huh. There she is. Tried it, but didn't run well on the machine that I tried it on. Thank you, Laura. Laura is at work, so is trying not to disturb her work beyond giving us chat comments at the moment. Thank you. I knew that because that's what she said in an email. Okay. As we move forward, there will always be more history to look back at. And I imagine someday we'll even say, wow, wasn't it interesting when there were any other kinds of computers but Linux computers? That may be still a while in our future. Okay. Any other FOSS history before we move on to hot software?
I think so.
It sounds like we move on. All right. Calibre. I think we may have at least briefly touched on Calibre as a tool in the world of Linux, but it is a specific to ebook piece of software. The calibreebook.com is the source of the software, and it turns out not to just be Linux, but also cross-platform for Macintosh and Windows. Most people don't read their ebooks on the computer. Most people use either a specific ebook reader like the Kindle or the Nook, or they read on their otherwise ebook compatible software on their phone. I've been taking to that pathway most recently. But Calibre has a set of very nice tools in it. And I thought I would take a moment to just poke some of the tools at your face so that you can see my take on it. I'm going to unshare this screen and share my Calibre window. are you? I don't see it. Oh, no. I am confused. I thought I saw it here before. Well, all right. I'm going to do the tricky entire screen, and then we'll have to try to work our way around from there. Can everybody see my Caliber window now?
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Caliber is a multi-function tool, primarily capable of handling books that have been converted from one format to another, or to allow you to format a book that is in one format. This Lisa Mason book, for example, is over on the right, an EPUB format, which is the standard except for Kindle. EPUB is a more universal format for publishing ebooks with a structure that is fundamentally a zip file of HTML pages, along with some other files to prepare layouts and tables of contents and that sort of thing. But if your book is not proprietary and has no digital rights management, DRM, or as some of us like to say, digital restrictions manipulation or management, you can use a tool like this Caliber to change the format. For example, if I wanted to put this Arachne book onto a Kindle, which I don't have, I could choose this icon at the top. It would say, okay, what do you want to do with this book? And up at the right-hand side, I have the opportunity to choose from a huge number of different choices. I can go to the older format, Mobi was the older format of early Kindles. They then went to AZW3, but I could also choose to make it DocX to be readable by Microsoft Word. I could go for a PDF. I could make it rich text format, convert it just into simple text, dropping out all the pictures and the covers and so forth. This is a tool that makes it possible to take one version and create another useful version for your particular ebook reader. So I think that's one of the nicest features of it. And the result is that you would get that version of it to trade to your ebook reader, as in the article telling you how to move a book like this over into the Kindle. The Black Buccaneer, for example, is another EPUB that could be sent over to the Kindle following the directions given in the article. But if you really wanted to, you could read the book right here by going to the view icon. There's a reader that's built into the Caliber program, and that reader allows you to do what is popping up here. Takes a moment to prepare. And chapter 1, this is, oh, by the way, this is a book that I got from the Gutenberg Project. By way of the Project Gutenberg distributed proofreading team, which is a connection with the original Project Gutenberg. These books are from before current copyright, so they have been transferred into the public domain. This particular one was published in 1920, making it available for redistribution without having DRM necessary. But if I wanted to read this, it has screen controls along with being able to use the arrows on the keyboard to read the pages one at a time, clicking through in the way that you might use the same motions on a Kindle or a Nook. If you don't want to read it here, you can shift over to giving it to your Nook, to your phone. When I use the transfer, I use a program called KDE Connect that shares between my phone and this computer. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate that to you because it would require that I show you how my phone gets the book. And worse, my KDE Connect has died, and I don't know what's the matter with it. It just died yesterday. I'm hoping that somebody will figure out how to upgrade my KDE Connect for me so that I can go back to using it. All right. Anybody have more questions or some questions about this process, this tool? I hear someone raising a hand. And I don't see who that was.
It was me, Jill.
Jill? Okay.
My question is that list of books that you had, are those books that you've downloaded onto your computer?
Yes, for the most part, that's what they are. If I download using the Caliber itself, it's possible to go out to sources like Project Gutenberg and get the files. Otherwise, if I directly go to Project Gutenberg or another site called Standard eBooks, I'll mention where that is in a moment. The file comes into my downloads folder, and then I just use Caliber to open it in order to see it in that list. This list is including a whole bunch of things from multiple authors, including someone who wrote a very short story called Dwarf Planet. And there he is, it made into an ebook after having written it about 5 years ago. No,
Well, this looks very good for me because I've been downloading things from Project Gutenberg, but usually in PDF forms, and this looks much easier to read.
I think that you will find you love this because even if you do download something in PDF, you can use this program to convert it in a very straightforward sort of way. Obviously, as well, you can download as an EPUB, which is the standard I recommend you use if you're downloading from Gutenberg for a standard reading experience. EPUB is very well supported around ebook readers, so it's a good central tool, a central protocol, central file system, and this Calibre handles all the tasks you would need to use. You can even edit a book. If you look up here on the right-hand corner of the options menu, if you have a book that needs editing, I'm going to go to mine because then I won't goof up anybody. If I go to edit the book, takes a moment to happen. You'll, on the left here, see the arrangement of parts. There are bookmarks that you can put in. There's a table of contents. There's a file that describes this whole set of contents. There's a title page that is an XHTML page, and actually almost everything that's in an ebook is in HTML. So that if you know a good deal about how to structure a web page, using this editor will cause you no great difficulties. There's a CSS style sheet, and there's page styles. Depends on what your book is, whether or not they are all used. But it turns out this is not some bizarre isolated format. It's really pretty much standard web format. The sections here are divided into what's text and what's styles and what the images are. In this case, only one image, the cover image, some fonts, and then the miscellaneous parts. So editing is not that difficult. It does take a little bit of learning to do a good job of setting up an ebook from another format, but it's not that difficult. Okay. I highly recommend this tool, this Calibre tool. Download it, give it a try,
Couple of
and
comments.
off you go. All right, I'm going to stop sharing this window so that I can go back here and restart the menu share, the archive, the agenda share. Now I can see the window of Calibre. I don't know what was missing before.
Can you hear
Okay.
today? Oh, that's just lovely.
I hear somebody speaking softly in the background.
Bill is trying to talk.
Yes, I hear you, Bill.
Okay, couple of comments on Calibre and
Yes.
Project Gutenberg. The distributed proofreading project is Project Gutenberg's secret sauce, so that their page images are translated to ASCII perfectly. This is head and shoulders above the automatic OCR that you get with Internet Archive. The trade-off is Internet Archive has a lot more books because they just OCR them, they don't proofread.
Mm-hmm.
The OCR is getting better and better. One particular success story I had with Caliber is I purchased a reference book as an ebook from New England Historical Genealogical Society Press, and fed it through Caliber to get a flat ASCII file. I forget if I converted it to HTML or to PDF with text to then strip it to text. I don't know, but I've got a text file which is wrapped lines for paragraphs that is searchable with Unix keyboard tools, which is remarkably useful for this reference book. Caliber is also strongly recommended by a friend of mine who's been doyen of ebook tools for a decade or more. So yes, highly recommended.
Excellent. Thank you, Bill. And I mentioned one other source that I bookmarked in my email program. So I'm just going to go there and get a link to, where is it? Ebook. There we go. Standard eBooks has popped up on my screen in Firefox. So I suspect you're seeing the Rachel Ray novel. It's a group that takes books that have been put through the process at Project Gutenberg, but then also cleans them up, does font work, makes a variety of different efforts. And then about once every 3 or 4 days, they release another of these books that have a little more beauty about them than the standard versions that you get directly from Project Gutenberg. They're just kind of a layer above. And if you're looking for a well-formatted version of a book that you didn't particularly like as an ebook from Project Gutenberg, maybe these guys will have published a version. They don't charge for them, but they do accept donations, or they welcome you to get involved in the process. And if you go to the base domain, you'll find that these are free and liberated ebooks carefully produced for the true book lover. I have followed them mostly by way of their RSS feed, so that every time they publish one, my reader, which happens to be Thunderbird, pops up with the list of the item that lists their latest book. In the case that I pointed out, it's the Anthony Trollope book. But I do love the process here of books that are out of circulation or otherwise difficult to get in a readable form. Standard ebooks, Project Gutenberg, and as Bill pointed out, if you don't mind needing more work, the less beautiful versions that are on the archives.org, Internet Archives. Thank you. Okay. Further questions on Caliber and or ebooks? Seeing no hands, I'll go back to our agenda. And I see that we have Classic Press. I don't know if this is very much of interest to anybody, but if you are a blog kind of person and have used WordPress, this Classic Press is an effort to provide a fork of the very complex, very powerful, very well made, very structured WordPress software, which is open source in spite of being as complex and powerful as it is. A lot of stuff is like that. Classic Press is an effort to make a reduced version that is focused on people who want to do just simpler work. Running your own server, for example, and having your own blog. And maybe it is for creators who want to deal with the process as much as they want to use the blogging software. If you have this interest, I would recommend you take a look at this Classic Press. I don't believe they have a service similar to the WordPress.com. WordPress.com is a way to do a blog on your own without having to run the software. It does have ads interspersed, but if you have a wish to run your own system, maybe Classic Press is going to be easier for you than using the full WordPress download, because it's a simpler editor. The new editor is not everybody's cup of tea. It's got too many bits and pieces for some. The Classic was much simpler to use for most of us. But WordPress.com has moved away from that. Okay. Was there a mic open with somebody wanting to speak? I see Dick Miller's mic is on. Did you have a comment, Dick?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. That's okay.
I coughed.
Ah,
All right. Let me move on then. Tree Dome, similar cross-platform application that is in an early stage just for note-taking. But what's interesting about it is that it's encrypted. So if you do note-taking and want to have those notes not accessible to anybody else, this cross-platform application might be what you're looking for. Tree Dome. I haven't used it. I don't know anything serious about it, but I ran across the announcement here on its articles over time. Apparently an application that is local, meaning you do your note taking on your own computer, but then can make them available in format for others who know your encryption keys to get access to. And I don't recommend that you jump in on this too soon because it's in early stage development. But if you're interested in such a thing, maybe you should read this article and go and take a closer look. And Cosmic. Arnie is not with us, I don't think. Is that correct? Arnie Peterson. Ah, too bad. he has a couple of items that he put into our discuss mailing list. A good place to put anything you think ought to be on our agenda for the coming months. Because if you put it there and recommend we take a look at it, what I do is grab those items I see and convert them into agenda items. If you can join us for the meeting, you can then tell us more about them. If you can't join us for a particular meeting, maybe we'll talk about them anyway, depending on if someone has reviewed the article. So in this case, Cosmic. This is of interest because it is a Linux desktop distribution that is being developed by System 76, one of the open hardware kind of companies that manufactures specifically for Linux software. So the open process here is kind of doubled up. System 76 is a company that is known for selling Linux systems with Linux software ready to run, but they have also been developing their own distribution of the Cosmic desktop environment. And it might be that we will be looking into this as the future comes, because although this current version is an alpha release, that's pretty early, it may turn beta and attract a whole bunch of people beyond just the System 76 company itself. And I think Laura mentioned something about this. Do you know, Laura, if the person came along to join us in this meeting who was a System 76 person? I see the note in the chat window. Oh, just in time to see that word in the middle. Sorry about that, Dennis. We appreciate the effort. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting reaction by a person who, like me, doesn't love this AI stuff generally, to be almost assaulted by a close friend. I don't know. Don't send me AI generated pictures either. I don't want to see them. Okay. I know they exist and I know some of them are fine, but don't send them to me. All right, my dears. Bob, we're up to you on your footnote about the power of.
Yeah,
Let me
a
get
different
to
take.
that.
A different take. I may need to share my screen.
Okay.
A different take on. Yeah, let me share from the agenda. That might help.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I've got a copy of it. And what I will do is I will start by sharing my entire screen. Entire screen. Share. Now I got to be careful what I do. Okay. Now I will go to a tab, and this is another take on basically the cost of AI and how much does it cost? Well, people have been criticizing crypto mining, Bitcoin and such, and NFTs for using a lot of energy. And it turns out Microsoft has realized they're going to need a lot of energy for the data centers that process all this AI. It's processed generally in the cloud, and these AI PCs have only very limited local processing power. And heat is a real issue, by the way, with these NPUs. But with these data centers, you're going to need new power plants. Bill Gates, of all people, is involved in trying to get these additional power plants authorized and built. This is about Microsoft. Bill Gates is no longer involved with Microsoft directly. So Microsoft is buying up some old nuclear power plants, including the surviving unit of 3 Mile Island. That doesn't mean it's unsafe. That's been upgraded completely. But it's interesting they're now talking about pushing for small nuclear because now they need it for their big power plant, their big data centers. And in the EU, there's yet another take they've taken on all this, and that is they are actually using the waste heat from their data centers as an energy source, and they're trying to get credit for that in the EU. So here they are wasting all this energy to do this AI stuff that maybe you want it, maybe you don't, but it's a big deal right now. So it's to be taken seriously. It's a big deal for business. It's going to be part of your life, whether you like it or not. But they might just as well get some good use out of it. I would recommend maybe the Bitcoin mining operations should do the same sort of thing. And also a certain person's social network that's basing itself in Texas. Now moving into Texas, I could consider putting that into the grid because they have some problems in wintertime there. And that's basically these links give you the details as to what Google's case in the EU is, what Microsoft is doing, and there's a link to what Bill Gates is doing. I presume everyone who is here, I'm going to stop sharing. I presume everyone who is here at this meeting should know that Bill Gates has become a very large landowner out west. And these big chunks of land, everybody has wondered, what did he want to do with these? And now we have two possible answers, maybe. AI data centers and nuclear power plants. And I'm not personally opposed to small nuclear. It depends on how you do it. So,
Only if you
goody.
get rid of the spent fuel on the land or in the basement of the building of the CEO.
yeah,
Good feedback.
yeah, the spent fuel has been an issue, and they've been trying to figure out ways of dealing with it, including different designs of power plants, including the thorium-based. But yeah, it is a problem. But any other form of
You
clean
mentioned-
energy.
You mentioned
Whoever.
that on 3 Mile Island, this was the surviving plant.
Yeah.
The other one had a major meltdown
Yes.
some number of decades ago. They haven't even attempted to go near it. And they've pointed out that nuclear is the only reliable source of power because other things depend on the wind, a clear sky, this, that, or the other. And I'm just looking at Western North Carolina, and I'm thinking a good dam would do the trick. Now that we've learned how to create major deluges, and we're going to have a lot of them coming.
If only
Non-radioactive, you got to give it credit where credit's due.
Yeah. If only we could predict where and when those events would occur.
Just wait.
In Massachusetts, meanwhile, we're excessively dry right now.
Yep. Except for Cape Cod.
Yeah.
Which nearly washed away.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They caught a piece of it.
Murph, you got your hand raised. Are you there, Murph?
Remind him to unblock his microphone. Oh, it says 1 sec.
Yeah, it's unmuted. I don't hear. Maybe the mic is not actually working. I hear somebody's phone.
Oh, how about now? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
good.
Okay.
Good.
A big error on my part. Sorry about that.
No trouble.
If you take a look at the link that I put in the chat, it looks like the taxpayers are on the hook for any potential problems with that nuclear power plant spin-up. So my opinion is, if Bill Gates wants that nuclear power plant spun up, maybe he should pick up the tab himself. I think
Mhm.
he has the money.
I'd buy that. Thank you, Marv. All right, we are at the point where an email issue is the remaining item on the agenda. It's an email from Charles Schwab, and our excuse me, I'm having brain freeze. Phooey. Let me.
It's
This
Charles
one's for
Schwab.
me.
Isn't everybody listening?
So I'm doing the window and there and share and Jill Miller's unusually convincing spam email from Charles Schwab.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jill.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, you can. I'll unshare mine. Just like that.
All I have to do is find the. I do the entire screen. Okay. I received this email in August, and it's from Charles Schwab, and it looks really, really real. No stupid typos, etc., etc., etc. And most of the links look correct also. Until you look at who it's from. Charles Schwab, info@pennyjapan.com. And if you look at the review here, it's SEC000-schwabs.ru, aka Russia. But that was the only clue that it wasn't real. And I noticed, I download my email. I don't use webmails. But I noticed that if you're reading on a webmail, they very seldom show you the actual email address that it's come from. It would just say Charles Schwab and Company, Inc. So I'm saying be really, really careful about any of these quick click here because things are going horrible if you don't fix it really fast.
I agree, Jill. And who had the hand up? I saw.
I did.
Oh, Jerry. Thank you.
Yeah. I
Let me
get those
unshare my
emails
screen.
all the time, and while the email address is kind of hidden on Google, right? What I do is I do a reply, and then I can edit the email and look for it because it's suspicious to me. So I just want to make sure it's not a legitimate email, where 90% of them are not from Schwab, Bank of America, or all sorts of places. And this is called phishing.
Hmm.
That's very common, and it's been around for a long time. Matter of fact, Bank of America just sent me an alert on the common versions of spam and attacks and stuff like that.
Murph again?
Yeah, and you should definitely be complimented for doing that due diligence and looking at the sender and looking at the link before clicking on it. That's awesome, and more people should do that.
No question. Bob?
Yeah. One of the things that is happening with spam that makes it so much more convincing is the application of these LLMs, AI. And it's cleaning up the language. It's cleaning up a lot of the expressions, and it's getting harder and harder to tell just by reading it or looking at the images that this is not real, that this isn't really who they say they are. I got fooled by something where I had just signed up for an in-store reward program, and there was, for some reason, not long after, there was a message that came into my email box that looked like it was from them. The only way I knew was when I went through to do the registration process. There was a subdomain that didn't make any sense. The rest of it looked entirely convincing. And I almost gave some personal information. And I'm pretty sharp about these things.
Yeah, usually you want to not click on the link, but go directly to the website.
In this case, that was not possible because of the way the rewards program had been set up.
Oh, geez.
They set it up in the store without giving a website. And there was no
Coincidence, you
website.
say?
What? What was that, Dick?
Coincidence, you say? I think not.
There was enough of a delay, it might or might not have been. Yeah,
You're all ignoring the flip side of this issue. If Schwab is relocating to Japan, maybe there's something we want to know.
Wait a minute, Japan via Russia.
Via Russia.
Right.
Well, they're fairly close together.
Mm-hmm.
In the north.
Oh, good grief. Two spams from the same person. Lucky you, Ed. One from Brazil and the other from the EU. I love it.
Probably a
Well,
pilot.
that's the advantage of having one or two email aliases that forward to my main mailbox.
Mhm.
I get several copies of the same formula spam in short period, and they look remarkably similar, which tells me that they're both junk.
That's a good
Also,
point.
the person's name is SDF, SDF, DF, SDF. At
I don't know that person.
yes,
They
that's
send me a lot of stuff.
that's called hovering over the link in order to see where it really goes.
Mm-hmm.
That still works.
Not on an Android phone. I don't think you can hover on Android.
No, not on
And
phones.
That's
but on
an
desktop.
intriguing problem that makes a big issue for people who only use their phone as their primary connection to the internet. There are
And that,
techniques we've developed that we cannot use from the laptop or the desktop experience.
and
Go
that
ahead, Dick.
means that the new offering of Thunderbird for Android is also crippled in that regard.
Yeah.
Unless it has a feature where you can do that.
Maybe.
There could be a special app feature. I would hope there would be.
Yeah.
I saw a comment on that as a shortfall for it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got a program that I'm nervous about, but I downloaded it anyway this morning, hoping I'd have time to look. I haven't yet. There's a free version of AI that will install on your computer without using any online horsepower. It looks like most of the computers we use probably are big enough to handle it well. And they say if you're using this in a company, talk to us. But if it's for personal use, come and get it. I'll send the link. It looked terribly interesting with all the same nervousness on my part that you've been sharing. But it sounded like a different kind of an offer.
And again, this works without advanced hardware or NPUs or anything like that.
And a large number of LMM existing patterns they can load into it at your choice.
That's LLM.
Large, lousy something.
Maggots.
Misdemeanor.
There you go. Large language model. I know I'm being silly. Okay. Well, I must say this has been a particularly interesting meeting for me. I appreciate that everybody here took the time to join us on our Jitsi monthly NatickFOSS.org. And I hope to see you next month in November. Let's quickly check here. November will be the 7th. And our notes will be updated for that on our NatickFOSS.org homepage. If you have any remaining questions, don't hesitate to ask. I typically copy the entire chat message set. So if you've left something there before I shut down, I'll try to capture everything that's been mentioned in that part of our talk. I don't think this entire meeting was recorded, but that part which was will be online for a review as well. And any other last moment comments from anybody?
Goodbye.
I
Bye,
thank
everybody.
you again.
Thanks,
And
everyone, for a good meeting.
Happy New Year to all the Jewish people. It's
Oh, yes.
Rosh
Absolutely.
Hashanah tonight.
Shana
Shana Tova.
There you
But
go.
not with ham radio.
Oh, that's bad.
That's bad.
Dick is going to get banned.
Oh,
from
I just
Jitsi.
got it.
Probably not spam radio either. Bye, all. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Bye. No, they're ready.